Week 3.
Week 3.
Solid ground message,
Solid
building
ground.
your house on a firm foundation. Austin, like, it's been a great message so far. I know that, like, everything that you guys are doing in student ministry, you know, walks to a little bit of a different beat of a drum, but I think that these kinds of conversations have been important. Do you think generally, like, this series is helpful for your students?
Oh, it so is. I mean, you talk about a heart for the next generation, and if we truly want to give them direction, they are a generation that is also searching for direction,
Right.
just like any upcoming generation, and how important it is for we as the church. This isn't just even, we'll get into it, it's not just for parents, it's as the body of Christ.
Whole body of Christ.
It's the whole body of Christ. And so how important it is for these students to realize, hey, there is a generation that loves them.
Absolutely.
That cares for them, and ultimately just like wants to see them pursue Christ.
For sure. Yeah. And so before we get too far into it, I realize I jumped the gun. It's totally my fault.
All good.
So if you're listening to this for the first time, you know, my name is Miles. I'm the creative and production director here at the North Kent Chapel. And this is Austin Hovermail, one of our loud, proud, true to the faith student pastors that we have here as well. So
I appreciate that.
But yeah, no, he's exactly right. I think Austin's already like hitting some really strong zingers on the fact that when we talk about faith, it is not, your faith is personal, but the approachability to the story of God is a group effort.
Yes.
And that it doesn't just stop with you. It's very much your home, our home, the body of Christ. And so for week 3, like we were saying before, this is a series that we're in our 3rd week of it. And the scripture that was in the message this past week was Deuteronomy 6:1-9 and 20-25. So I'll read that real quick just to get us all on the same page.
Let's do it.
It says this, and now this is the commandment, the statutes and the rules that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land to which you are going over to possess it, that you may fear the Lord your God, you and your son and your son's son, by keeping all of the statutes and his commandments for excuse me, which I command you all the days of your life, and that your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, that it may go well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hands, and they shall be on the frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on your doorposts of your home and on your gates. And then 20-25 says, when your son asks you in time to come, what is the meaning of the testimonies and the statutes and the rules of the Lord our God has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, when we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand, and the Lord showed signs and wonders and great and grievous against Egypt and against Pharaoh and all of his household before our eyes. He brought us out from there, that he might bring us in and give us the land that he swore to give our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as we are this day. And it was righteousness for us if we are careful to do all this commandment before the Lord our God he has commanded us. And so fat slab of scripture. What a passage, right? You know, it's one of those things that, like, obviously me being one of the, you know, obviously most astute readers in the whole world, getting through, there's a reason why the English teacher never called on me in class to read, man. But either way, this is one of those things, like, when you read this top to bottom, it's a story strongly about, okay, this is the history of who God is and what he's done. But more importantly, it's kind of one of those things. There's not only is this who God is and what he's done, but we need to remember the fact that these are the things he has done, and it's proof of who he is now and will be going forward throughout the rest of our lives. And so this whole thing about, especially verses 20-25, where it says, you know, when your sons come and ask you, what are you going to say, man? And so I guess, Luke, you are a student pastor here, right?
Mhm.
You are very much in the forefronts
Yeah.
of helping the spiritual development of kids
Mhm.
in their teenage years, which is like, you would probably agree,
Yeah.
like one of the most intense times.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. But knowing that too, like you're a father.
Yeah.
Like you got a little kid. How old is your kid right now?
He just turned 1 a couple days ago, so
Heck
he's fresh off the 1 years old train, and man,
Yeah.
like you're talking about that, and I'm just imagining with a couple like I started a birthday tradition with him. It was like every birthday I'm gonna take out my kid
Sure.
and have a donut, and like as like obviously he really can't talk yet, but like I'm imagining those times in the future where he'll be like just asking questions. And like, what am I going to say? Like, what are the questions he's going to ask me?
Mhm.
Like, will I have the answer? And like, I got a little tense at the moment because like,
Right.
I mean, it's going to be a while before he probably asks these questions,
Sure,
but
right.
they're going to come.
Right.
They are going to come.
And so, that being said, it's just
Yeah.
like, I'm in the same boat too.
Yeah.
I've got boys that they're going to turn 7 next Saturday, and I've got a daughter who's 5, and our youngest one is about as old as your
Yeah.
one is. And so I'm in the same boat where I'm just wondering, at what point are we going to hit this marker where, what my faith means to
Yeah.
me is so either well written on my lips or it's not.
Exactly.
And so I guess from that perspective, coming from those two
Mm.
worlds of like, you care about the spiritual direction of teenagers who are not your kids, but then also being a father, how is having an outspoken faith in your home relevant among honoring the legacy of Christ's redemption for us?
Yeah, man. Even as a student pastor, I like to tell parents, like, I get them for maybe at most 2 hours of the week, maybe a couple more depending on that week. But more than likely, they're at the home. And so that is the place where the greatest impact and influence, like, that child can have is at the home. And like, as we're talking about this, even through the passage, like if you notice, it's talking about discipleship, what discipleship looks like, even before we even put a word to discipleship.
Right. Yeah.
But like, notice it's not like, hey, send him off to a class and then, or send him off to an event. It's life on life, right? When you sit down, when you wake up, and like, those are the moments like students remember. They don't remember a lot what you taught them, but they remember how you modeled your life.
The intentionality.
And so like, it's so easy to talk about sports, right? If you go home, like me and my dad, we could talk about sports for a very long time. And like a lot of families, they could talk about band, they could talk about a lot of these things. And that's the same principle that's being applied here. It's just as you would to your faith.
Yeah.
And that takes practice. Like it takes a rhythm. You can't just like do it once a week and expect it to like make an impact.
Great, right.
It would be, So like there's intentionality there of like, hey, the aspects of my kids' lives that I see, I'm gonna speak into.
Right.
What are they into? What are they liking? Like what is their school environment like? Like asking those questions. It doesn't always have to be these deep like theological concepts that you're like wrestling. It's like, how did you see Jesus show up today?
Yeah.
Like how did Jesus impact your life today? Like all these simple questions that can be brought up. Then you can go maybe deeper based on that. But it's very simple of just making Jesus a part of every aspect of your life, not just on Sundays, not just on Wednesdays, but like at the home, at the dinner table. Instead of talking about, what LeBron did, the night before of like, hey, what did Jesus do like yesterday?
But I guess in that being said too, I feel like you're rubbing right up against like some cultural things that I think we can't help but talk for a second about.
Yeah.
If we're not at a point where Jesus is casually brought up in our home, we have to ask ourselves why.
Yeah.
Coming from a background where it's like so much of when we talk about the Bible, we serve at the church or whatever it is, it's very structured.
Yeah.
There is a right way. There is a wrong way. And you get bonked on the head if it's the wrong way.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think one of the fears that I've had, whether it's as a young man or even now as a father or a husband or whatever it is just like, is the way that I'm about to talk about Jesus actually right? And sometimes that's a debilitating thing. It's just like sometimes, in culture, like we talk about gatekeepers, right?
Yeah.
If you like this band or you like this sports team, you're only a legit follower if you know this thing, if you've seen this game, if if your favorite song is this. And so much of our ability to talk with other people about the
Yeah.
things we like are based on how much
Mm.
we know and understand at the forefront of what it is.
Yeah.
And when Christianity becomes this thing where we only can talk about it if it's right, and we can only be, equipped enough to handle parenting
Yeah.
as a Christ follower if we've been through these certain set of milestones.
Yeah.
But the interesting part about faith
Mhm.
is that we're all in a process of sanctification.
that's right.
We've come from a busted place in our life,
Yeah.
and we're moving towards a less busted place
Mhm.
each day. But I think the problem that we would probably have as people is if it doesn't come up casually
Mhm.
or comfortably, it's because, one, we haven't let the fact that grace overshadows shame
Yeah.
in our life. So we don't have to be perfect when we
Mhm.
talk about God.
Yeah.
We just have to believe that grace has been extended to us when we
Yeah.
didn't deserve it. And that comes for our kids too.
Totally.
And
Like,
so- yeah.
and I want to speak to two things with that is like as a parent or as a guardian of whatever child, whoever you're entrusted, like that's a big responsibility. And
For
that
sure.
you're talking about that weight of, am I going to say the right thing?
Right.
Am I going to like bring this sermon upon him? He's going to be amazed. And like, I think if you take away
Yeah.
that pressure
Yeah, sure.
of having to know it all,
Right.
right? Like as a parent, you or guardian, you don't have to be perfect.
Mhm.
And that's we're just talking about grace, and that's a key thing to communicate to your child.
Yeah.
Is also you don't have to be perfect.
No.
Some of the things that I think stands in the way from those conversations happening is the child thinks, right? In Gen Z, there's been studies done of like they are anxious because of finding approval in
Yeah.
things, performance. Like they're a very performance driven generation, and like I think that keeps students and kids away from having those conversations because they're gonna feel like I let mom, dad,
Down.
or my guardian down. Like I let them down.
Yeah.
And as a parent, it's like I'm not. What if I don't have the right? That
Yeah.
pressure, I don't have the right decision or like statement to say of what a child brings to me. So there's a lot of pressure. So like if we just both sides come together, being able to have a conversation, knowing, hey, we're not perfect. We don't know everything.
Mm.
We're all in this walk of life.
Together.
We're together.
Yeah, right.
All right. But we can learn together.
Yeah.
We can learn from each other. Like the parent has much to know about Jesus from a child
Mhm.
than a child does a parent.
Right.
And if you come with that mindset, like I guarantee you will grow.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah.
Like you will grow in your walk with Christ.
100%. So I guess kind of springboarding right
Mhm.
out of that. So like our kind of next talking point is,
Yeah.
from a student ministry perspective, kind of talk more specifically about your experience of being that, help in
Mhm.
helping students on their navigation towards, what is it like to live a
Yeah.
Christ-filled life? What would you want parents to know about how important their influence is on a kid? You mentioned the whole thing about how you only get 2 hours.
Exactly.
We've both been in student ministry enough to know that sometimes parents have this perspective that it's
Yeah.
all up to you. So kind of
Yeah.
just tell us, like, as from a parent's perspective, what should we
Totally.
know?
Man, first thing I would say is this. There's studies done of asking this generation who is the most impactful or influential person in your life that you look up to. And we would think, oh, it's somebody they're watching on YouTube.
Right.
It's somebody on TikTok or their friends. But in reality, it is their parents. It's the parents, the grandparents. It's the family. And so realizing of like you have a greater impact than you think.
That's good.
Like you can send them to an event. You can send them to a program. But those things don't disciple.
Mm-hmm.
They can teach. They can be great launching points. But ultimately, they won't disciple.
Yeah.
And like there is that kind of job for as a parent or guardian that you are responsible. But here's the thing. It's just not you.
Yeah.
It's not feel like, oh, I can't ask help. I can't get
Right.
people involved. And so like, first off, like it takes that pressure of like, oh, I got to do it. So it's either I do it or I don't do it. Like
Right.
that pressure
Yeah.
makes me not do anything.
Right.
And so like we want to walk alongside parents.
For sure.
That is the goal.
Yeah.
Right. We are a household of faith.
Yeah.
We are coming together to encourage to when not just when things are bad, Right? I think that's often of
Yeah.
students doing something that we're like, oh, we don't want them to see them doing, and it just breaks our heart. And so then we go like, oh, we got to fix it all, right?
Triage.
Like,
You're just
yeah,
trying-
exactly. That's
taking
the
them to
only time I
emergency
ask
room.
for help,
Right.
instead of like partnering
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
So like, there's nothing like, as we know, as you know, like, especially when they're young, everything that you say or do, they will model.
Oh, it's
Right?
terrible.
I'm starting to learn this now.
Yeah,
Luke
yeah.
will start doing things that I do. I'm like, you're 1 year old, and that's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then I'm like, oh, am I doing things right? Like, I
Yeah.
gotta watch what I say, watch what I do. Like, how do I love my wife in front of my kid?
Sure.
Like, all these things, I'm becoming more aware. And like, for a parent, I want you to know, or a guardian, I want you to know that often your actions do speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Like, how important it is for you to model the faith that you want your kid to have.
Yeah.
You got to model it.
Yeah.
You can't just say, hey, do this, but then they see your life and it's like, that has nothing to do. Like, it's not aligning with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so the greatest thing that you can do is not feel like you have to preach them a sermon, like, or send them to a class. It's just showing them how you try to pursue holiness in every aspect of your life.
And so I guess like, and not even that I want to you to slow your roll. So let's kind of like dial that in.
Yeah.
Like we've eliminated the burden, right?
Yeah.
It's not all in or all out. It's not all on you. It takes a village. Is how the phrase would go, right? But in both perspectives, it's not like, it's not all Austin, and it's not all Roger Fout, our middle school director. So knowing all that, it's not all on you, and it's not all on the parent. It takes a village. What would you just encourage on them is in a way to like give a testimony driven lifestyle in their home? Because what you're saying, again, you don't have to make your life a sermon where everything's got a tweetable inside of like you said. But talk about the idea about just having an approachable faith as a parent. Yeah.
Man, you got to be real and authentic. Like, you got to show your kid that you actually don't have it all together.
Oh, dude.
Like,
that's it right
but
there.
That's hard, right?
Yeah.
Because then you don't want to feel like you're letting down your kid.
Yeah.
Like,
or that you lose the parental authority.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's rough. Yeah.
It's rough. And so, but the best thing you can do is to show them you don't have it all together.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Because it's modeling for them. Like, God does not expect perfectionists. Like, he doesn't expect, he expects disciples who are willing to pursue holiness. And that when they fail, and like, you can tell your kid and give examples, hey, I failed at this.
Yeah.
Will you forgive me? Like, I wasn't Christ honoring at all to my wife. I wasn't Christ honoring all to your sibling, or whatever it might be. I said something I shouldn't have. Like, being real at the moment of seeking forgiveness, but along with that forgiveness, there's grace.
Yeah.
So modeling grace, like, will open up doors to so many conversations, because you're showing that student, yeah, you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
You're going to mess up, and that's okay. So like, the Spirit never condemns, right? We see in Romans, it doesn't condemn, but it does convict. Like, when when it brings that out. And so you're modeling that to your student.
Yeah.
And that will speak more volumes than I'm going to give you a 3-point sermon, right? Sit down, like, I'm going to go verse by verse, and I'm going to give it, like, just explain it all. Live it out.
Yeah.
Because if you don't live it out, like, you lost all credibility.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah.
But like, so modeling it at the home in the simple things.
Yeah. 100%.
Will speak volumes. That's what they will remember when they leave your household.
Yeah, which and that was totally a theme of what Micah had said a few weeks ago when we were talking about week 1. It's just like, they may not remember the minutia, the granular detail, the verse reference, the cross referencing you did to whatever commentary to get to. They don't necessarily care about that.
Exactly.
But it's the fact that you modeled a repeatable lifestyle, right? If the adage is that a house is built brick by brick, your testimony and your home of faith is built action by action of how approachable you make it for your students.
Exactly.
So, awesome, dude. This was an awesome conversation, man.
Dude, we could talk all day.
I know. We really could.
Why does it have to end?
I know. It's frustrating. but also all that to say, man, is that especially on this topic, the work that you and Roger do in student ministry, invaluable. as a parent that doesn't yet have kids in student ministry,
Yeah.
but also knowing the value that it has at our church.
Mhm.
We appreciate it. We appreciate you.
Wow.
And yeah,
Appreciate
so
it.
if you guys are listening to this and you don't know who Austin is, you don't know who Roger Fout is, you got to get to know them, especially if you're here.
Well,
on some-
Roger, you definitely have
Yeah.
to get to know. Like,
Yeah.
that guy's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not that interesting. But,
Yeah.
you
That's
know.
what anybody that interesting would say. So there you go. It's like you're playing right into the narrative.
Fine, that'll be it.
Yeah, but yeah. So guys, thank you so much
Yeah.
again. This is week three into
3.
our series. So we've got a couple more weeks coming up. Awesome guests going to be talking through some stuff as it relates to their ministry spaces. So just stay tuned. Thank you so much for listening.